This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark Magnuson.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Monday, April 8th, 2024, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, it is the latest edition of Between the Pods. I will be joined by Grant Kimberley of the Iowa Soybean Association. It is time now for our closing market summary.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
At the end of another trading day, we are joined now by Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net for our closing market summary. Robin, what did we see take place in the grains today?
Well, not a whole lot, really. I mean, it was kind of a slow type of a day in the grains. We were able to see just a slight gain in the corn. A little more pressure on soybeans. Meal was probably the stronger part of that complex. Wheat had a little divergence between Chicago wheat, Kansas City wheat, and that was because some of the rain in the hard red winter wheat areas not quite as good a coverage as what they had anticipated. So, but nothing that really was a real big issue. Now, rain in a good section of Iowa didn't materialize as well as expected either. So a lot of places they're anticipating maybe midweek toward the end of the week, there's going to be a lot of planters rolling. So we're that time of year, I guess. And so we can look for some of that. Now in the Eastern Corn Belt, they're more saturated. Nothing's going to happen there for a longer period of time. That seems to almost be somewhat standard for many years, kind of that split between the two. But anyway, so we'll be able to see what kind of progress we're going to be looking at as we move forward in the next few weeks. Now, export inspections today were down in all categories. Corn was at 55.9 million bushels. That was down 2 million bushels from last week. Soybeans, 17.8 million bushels, down 2.3 million bushels. And wheat at 18.3 million bushels, down 2.6 million bushels. So, again, the inspections don't really seem to have a lot of impact on the market. It's just something that's in the background that, maybe we have to look at in the bigger picture. The inspections are what's sealed out, ready to ship out. If we continue to see slower inspections, that's going to have an impact on our carryout. And now the WASDE report will be released on Thursday, and the trade estimates for U.S. carryout on that report are for corn at 2.109 billion bushels relative to March at 2.172. Soybeans at 319 versus 315 on the March report, and wheat at 691 million bushels compared to 673. So a little bit of bump up on corn. Soybeans and wheat. Little decrease in corn is what the trade is estimating right now. Now on world ending stocks, corn, they're looking at 317.1 million metric tons. In March, it was 319.63. So a little decrease there. Soybeans at 113.8 million metric tons. That's down from 114.27 million metric tons on March, and wheat at 259.3 million metric tons, a little bit higher compared to March at 258.83. It's a little too early for the market to be positioning for that report, but at least it gives something for us to look at. Really, the market was just kind of floundering around here a little bit today, trying to find some real solid direction, but unable to find any of that. Now, the one interesting thing that is an influence on the soybean market is Brazil's soybean exports for the first quarter of the year were at a record volume, for the first quarter. 29.09 million tons is up 15.7% from a year ago. So better currency rates there during that first quarter, really a competition against the U.S. So that's something in the overall big picture that we have to keep in mind, that we're going to continue to see that competition that's going to limit our real potential for rallies, even if we get a weather scenario, which is going to probably take a bigger weather scenario than usual based on what we went through last year. And we still saw some really good yields. So we're up against a lot of things as we come into the spring time frame and then into the growing season as far as real potential for price rallies at the present time. A lot of things can happen, but that's what we're looking at right now.
So we'll get ready for that report coming up on Thursday. And that is going to be interesting, Robin, whether or not the pattern stays kind of quiet heading into that report. Let's switch over to the other side of the ag marketplace in the livestock complex. What are we seeing taking place with the protein sector?
Well, cattle at least saw a little bit of stability today, which we saw that some last week too, and then it fell apart on Friday. But we had lower cash trade yesterday. Last week from $2 to $5 lower, depending on the area. It's going to be difficult for the market to really see some strength. The box beef prices were down substantially last week. The average for the week for choice was down $9.55, and for select down $8.73. Now, interestingly, today, we saw, at least on the morning report, a huge increase as far as boxed beef was concerned. Choice was up $4.59 and select was up $6.78. So, did the consumers have a change of heart? Did the trade just have a change of heart? Whatever. But there is some concern over the lingering impact of this avian flu. And interestingly, it has not impacted or affected beef cattle. It's been only found in dairy cattle at this point in time, but there is some concern that could happen because a bovine is a bovine. So that's a concern that's out there. But they renamed it, at least the Association of Bovine Practitioners referred to the avian flu now instead of HPAI. They said it should be called BIAV, which is bovine influenza A virus, type A virus. Just rhetoric, really doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but maybe calling it a bovine virus maybe is a little more apropos than calling it an avian flu virus. A lot of concern in the marketplace to some degree as to how this is all going to play out, if it's going to be a larger factor, if it's going to spread further or whatever, and that's kept the market off balance. We still see tight cattle numbers, and so the market's in a tug of war right now between those two different things. Which was going to win out in the end? Hopefully, we'll see a rebound as far as prices are concerned, and consumers won't back off too much from the dairy sector or from the beef sector. But that is something that's really has a large impact on the futures market to this point recently. Now, hogs, we had a really good week last week. Strong cash prices, strong cutout prices. Now, cutouts today at the midday report were up $3.74. So that indicates good, strong demand yet. But the National Daily Direct morning report for cash was down $4.09 to an average of 83.03. So Packers really pulled back to start the week out. But that's kind of been a pattern, a little bit lower demand from the Packers right at the beginning of the week. But then they step up to buy a little more later. Now, commitment of traders in the hogs, they showed an increase of 11,431 contracts, the fund traders, and that goes through April 3rd. So their net long positions are 75,172 right now. So they're pretty active in that. Now, looking at going back up to the cattle, commitment of traders did not reflect the end of the week. So if it goes through April 3rd, it showed that live cattle They sold 5,087 contracts to funds to a net long of 60,624. In feeder cattle, they actually increased 1,083 to 9,068. Now, bear in mind that wasn't the last part of the week. So we did see quite a bit of liquidation, fund liquidation that came through at the end of last week. So, but this is just recording to there, but it does show you a difference where there's a real interest that's developed in the hog market. And there's some good support under that, and I think that might continue.
Robin Schmahl, agmarket.net, our guest here today. Robin, what's the best way for our viewers to get in touch for more marketing information? You
can call me directly at 877-256-3253 or go to our website, agmarket.net. It's an 844 number there. You can call in. Somebody will pick up the phone and answer your questions or help you.
Robin, thanks so much for the information here today. We appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thank you. You as well. And it's always a pleasure.
Thank you to Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net for joining us on the show. It is time now to turn our attention to the closing numbers, which can be found under the Markets tab on our website at iowaagnet.com.
May corn closes up 1 1/4 at $4.35 1/2. May soybeans down 3 1/2 at $11.81 1/2. May soybean meal up $2.90 at $3.36 even. May soybean oil down 99 cents at $47.90. Chicago wheat down 1 1/2 at $5.65 3/4. Minneapolis wheat up 2 1/4 at $6.50 1/4. Kansas City hard red wheat up 3 even at $5.85 1/4. And May oats down 1 1/2 at $3.29 3/4. On the Merc, April live cattle up $1.15 at $179.40. April feeder cattle up $1.60 at $239.30. May lean hogs up 32 cents at $97.87. May pork cutout unchanged at $104.10. And Class 3 milk up 9 cents at $15.66.
That is our closing market summary for today, and that means it is time for a quick break to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soybean Checkoff. And when we come back, it is the latest edition of Between the Pods, as I will be joined by Grant Kimberley of the ISA. That's next here on Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
You are watching Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and in today's episode, we have the latest edition of Between the Pods. I am joined by Grant Kimberley of the Iowa Soybean Association as we talk about expanded soy processing and what that means for Iowa soybean farmers.
It's time to go between the pods with the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network and the Iowa Soybean Association. For the next year, we will explore the ways Iowa-grown soybeans are making a difference at home and around the world. Now, here's your host of Between the Pods, Mark Magnuson.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Grant Kimberley. We're at the Iowa Soybean Association. Grant, could you remind our viewers what your role is within the ISA?
Yes, I'm Senior Director of Market Development for Iowa Soybean Association, so I oversee all of our demand and market development building projects for the Soybean Association. I also serve as the Executive Director of the Iowa Biodiesel Board, which is a subsidiary organization that we work with the biodiesel industry in the state.
So, Grant, we know this following the industry closely, but for our viewers, our listeners that might not realize it, soy processing really ramping up in recent years. Could you kind of tell us where we're at on the timeline of trying to get that infrastructure all up to speed for what we need right now?
That's exactly right. We're seeing something we really haven't seen in 30 years, a massive increase in our soy processing capacity. Roughly 600 million bushels of additional soy processing capacity has been announced. Now, that may not all come to pass where we have all that be built out, but a good share of that is already been built here so far, and more will be built over the next couple of years. And that's something, if you put it in perspective, Iowa grows about 600 million bushels. So we're talking about an expansion that could theoretically process the entire state's crop.
And so, Grant, are there facilities that have been built here in the state specifically around the state recently? Where are we looking at as far as new facilities?
Yeah, the facilities are really all over the country, but primarily you're talking the Midwest. Within Iowa, we've seen a new facility just finished here the last couple years called Shell Rock Soy Processing up in Shell Rock, Iowa. There's also another facility being built in Alta, Iowa, northwest Iowa, called Platinum Crush. And then the existing soy crush facilities in Iowa have also, some of them have gone through expansion projects as well. So that's part of it. But, mostly you're talking about Midwest expansion.
So what does that mean for Iowa soybean farmers? Obviously, if a facility is close to them, that's going to be very good for the ease of getting those beans there and marketing those beans. But what does that mean for the farmer specifically?
Yeah, that's right. It just gives you more market opportunities as a farmer. And what that will do in that local area, maybe a 50-mile radius, is you're going to see improved basis. The cash price opportunities will improve at certain times of the year because of that demand. And so, having more markets like that, more demand, that's helpful. It also is going to help diversify our market portfolio overseas, because now we're going to be having to become a larger exporter of soybean meal rather than just being exporting whole beans.
So Grant, let's talk about biofuels then, and leading into that demand growing for biofuels, and then specifically biodiesel. We know that biodiesel sometimes gets, I think, lost a little bit in the shuffle, but certainly a lot of things happening with it as we continue to have new technology all the time developing. So where are we at right now?
When you're talking about the biofuel market from our perspective, you're really talking about three main markets. The biodiesel market, which historically has been what's built this industry, and it still is growing and has opportunities. There's a lot of exciting new markets there. You're also talking about renewable diesel, which is a similar but yet different product, more like diesel fuel that's made, and a lot of times existing petroleum refineries will retrofit and make this product around the coastal areas wherever there's a low carbon incentive. And then sustainable aviation fuel, biofuels made from or aviation fuel made from biofuels. Those are the markets that we're talking about, and that's what's driving the soy crush expansion that we just talked about. But when you look at biodiesel, there's some exciting markets here that are still new and growing, and that's markets like the marine sector. You're talking about the railroad sector. Those markets we really haven't tapped into yet when it comes to biodiesel, and those are more so going to be biodiesel focused markets. But in general, anywhere in the Midwest, there's still strong state incentives that play into it as well that help grow this biodiesel market.
So could something like the marine sector, the railroad sector, could that be a real boom for growth if that were to open up fully and then be, I guess, an output for, or I guess an endpoint then for producing these byproducts from soybeans?
Yeah, those markets could really grow, and a lot of it's being not just driven by some government policies and incentives, but it's being driven by corporate policies. A lot of these large shipping companies now, their customer base wants them to reduce carbon emissions. You're not going to electrify a large Panamax-sized vessel. You're talking about this kind of different kind of powertrain, and the best option they have is a drop-in technology like just inserting biodiesel into their fuel mix, and that can dramatically reduce their carbon emissions and reduce the pollutants out of the emissions, and of course it's a great economic driver for us.
And you touched on it, sustainable aviation fuel. We hear a lot about ethanol and how it ties into SAF. So where does the soybean side and the biofuel side for the soybean come into sustainable aviation fuel? Is that just part of the mix?
Yeah, it's part of the mix. When we talk about the aviation fuel side, there's different what we call pathways. And the ethanol to jet or the alcohol to jet pathway is the one that the ethanol industry is talking about. Great opportunity there for them. But our pathway is more what we call the fats and oils pathway. So it's a technology where you can take fats and oils and turn it into jet fuel. And actually, that's probably the one that we're going to see take advantage of it first, because it's the one that already meets all the low carbon emission requirements. And it's probably the easier technology to convert to sustainable aviation fuel initially. These renewable diesel facilities I talked about, all they have to do is take it through a little bit longer of a processing method, and basically they can come out on the other end with aviation grade fuel. And so this alcohol to jet is one way, but yes, fats and oils, which we're going to use soybean oil, is the other way.
And it's very interesting because it seemed like just a few years ago, this seemed kind of like a, down the road kind of a dream, I guess, really, for powering these planes through these renewable sources. And now we've actually seen it. We saw an actual flight fly from England to the United States. I believe that was in November. And that was with some of the oils and fats that you're talking about that were powering the plane.
That's right. A lot of the airline companies are all looking at this because, again, you can't electrify a plane very easily. So, and I don't think any of us really want to be flying on an electric plane at 35,000 feet over the Atlantic or Pacific Ocean. So, again, we're going to use the same engine technology, but we can use these drop-in fuels that are lower carbon and achieve these same goals. And these companies, they want to achieve a lower carbon emissions goal. And that market still has some time to go. It's got a long ways to go here to really get everything in place before it becomes a really big market, but the potential is there. I mean, just in the United States alone, I think we're talking well over 30 billion gallons of demand for aviation fuel. So a lot of exciting things for biodiesel, renewable diesel, and aviation fuel.
And really what all we're talking about today, and you being the very definitely the person to talk to about this, driving that demand upwards. And this is all these sources are driving demand for the Iowa soybean farmer.
It is. This all comes back to agriculture-derived feedstocks. And soybean oil on the fats and oil side is the most readily available oil that we have in the country. It usually makes up well over 50% of the feedstock mix. And so we're going to use all kinds of vegetable oils and animal fats. It's good for the livestock industry, but certainly soybean oil is going to be the leading part of that. And then what this does, it also makes us so we need to process more soybeans. We're going to have more meal now available. That should lower the meal costs. And then we're going to diversify our export markets, go to other markets around the world that want meal rather than whole beans, which is a good thing for us as well from that perspective.
So with soybean farmers you've talked to, do they realize, kind of exactly what's happening and being right on the vanguard of really these expanding new areas for technology to utilize the entire soybean?
I think a lot of farmers are starting to realize and see this almost fundamental shift and change we're starting to see in our marketplace. Maybe not to the same degree that I do or whoever is in the weeds every single day, but it's coming. There are changes happening, and long term this should be a really good thing for the soybean farmer. Solidifies the demand that we're going to have for soybeans for a long time to come, and we're going to have to grow more soybeans down the road.
So, Grant, is there anything else you'd like to let our viewers know about when it comes to just continuing to drive demand and those new outlets for Iowa soybeans to, I guess, help power that?
From our perspective as a farmer, I'm a farmer as well. Use the product when you have the opportunity to use the product that you produce, like biodiesel here in the Midwest. Ask your fuel supplier for it. Biodiesel adds and renewable diesel adds 13% to the net market value price of soybeans, so that's a couple dollars a bushel. So the more we can grow these markets, whether it's here at home, locally on our own farm, or through the trucking industry, or the marine or rail or aviation sector, all these markets are going to help us. So continue to use these products and look to see what happens when we continue to see the market grow.
And what better commercial or advertisement for those products than the actual farmers that grow them using them to, the average consumer has to see that and say, you know what, maybe I should be trying this out.
You're right. In Iowa alone, we have state incentives as well to make biodiesel blends a little less expensive than regular diesel fuel. So B11 blends or B20 blends are most common. We use B20 in our farm 6 months out of the year, and then the cooler months out of the year, we might use B11. And so those are the kind of the ways that we market that and use it, and it burns cleaner, burns really well, and all the engine companies have embraced it. So there's a lot of good benefits to it. And again, it comes back to it just grows our marketplace and offers opportunities for our industry.
He is Grant Kimberley with the Iowa Soybean Association. Grant, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate always when we get a chance to speak with you. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you to Grant Kimberley of the Iowa Soybean Association for joining us for today's episode of Between the Pods. And that brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Also, you can follow us on YouTube for our video content. Don't forget to subscribe. Click on the notification icon as well. That will let you know whenever we have any new videos available for you. Also, you can listen to our 3 times daily market podcasts, which are found on Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. And you can follow us on social media as well on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and TikTok. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Dustin Huffman, Andy Peterson, and Riley Smith, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.